If you know hockey, you know Hall of Famer Chris Pronger. Chris, who was an imposing defenseman over a stellar 18-year career, led three different franchises to the Stanley Cup Finals, including winning it all in 2007 with the Anaheim Ducks, and was awarded the league's Best Defenseman award the same year he won league MVP. That's something that only one other person has ever done, 30 years previous. That person was the legendary Bobby Orr. Yeah, Chris is in good company. And today, he and his wife Lauren are running a great company. In the luxury travel industry, their firm, Well Inspired Travels, serves athletes and entertainers, CEOs, companies, or anyone wanting or needing the rejuvenative powers a well-planned travel experience brings. The Prongers have transferred the lessons Chris learned on the ice to success in the field. Hey, Game Face Execs listeners, you're going to love this interview. I have got with me the famous, and in some circles, the infamous Chris Pronger, a Hall of Fame hockey player, a man who, if you know anything about the game of hockey, you know he is one who has several records to his name. He retired 10 years ago, but before he retired, he was one of the few people that not only won the MVP of the National Hockey League, but also the Defenseman of the Year award in the same year. He was the first man who had done that for almost 30 years. The only other name next to that is Bobby Orr. So Chris Pronger joining us on the Game Face Execs podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you, Chris.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, Chris, you and I have said that we're going to have a very all-encompassing interview, but you've promised me you're not going to treat me like one of those locker room reporters, right?
No, I'm going to lay off as long as the questions are good, Rob.
Okay. All right. I'll do my best. So I got to tell you, before you and I knew each other, I was just a fan of yours, an admirer of your play. You have skills and qualities I could never touch. First of all, you're 6'6". So you got about a foot on me, Chris, as you know. We're going to talk about your hockey career and how that positioned you for what you're doing today. But first, let's fast forward to today. You and your wife, Lauren, have started a business called Well Inspired Travels. And it's a fascinating story. Can you share with my audience a little bit about your business and the genesis of it? Because it's such an inspiring story.
Yeah, it was, it's my wife's baby. And it really stems back to her childhood. When she was 6, her father was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And with that, he looked at his wife, my mother-in-law, and said, I want to see the world for as long as I'm on earth. And they went off to Europe that first summer, and my wife got to see him full of life and energy and happiness, and off the chemo. And they went back for school, and he started planning the next vacation and went back on chemo and radiation. And she got to see him, the shell of himself and a beaten down man. And he fought hard enough for them to get to that next destination, which was Asia. And my wife's a firm believer that he chose that to marry Western and Eastern medicine. And he would go off for weeks at a time into the jungle with a medicine man and learn about holistic healing methods and transcendental meditation, and really kind of immerse himself in Eastern culture and Eastern medicine. And with that, they were off looking at the Great Wall of China and all the different sites in Asia. And, he's really, in the forefront and kind of ahead of the curve in marrying Western and Eastern medicine. And, he was able to learn some things that really helped allow him to stave off death and kind of wait for Western medicine to catch up. And fortunate enough for them, they get back and there's a radical new surgery over in Western medicine. And, he had it 2 years later. He was given a clean bill of health, was cancer free and a medical marvel. So my wife got to see the healing powers of travel and what the mind, body, and spirit can do. And that really left a mark on her. And they continued to travel all through her childhood and then early adulthood. And when we got together, I would travel and we would travel together, and I'd be in the middle of training in the summer times, and I'd become a little bit unglued when I couldn't eat the same way as I was when I was training and train. And I was a little maniacal about my training, and she'd look at me and go, you get all this money, you get all this stuff going on, and you can't relax. And I'm like, I'm preparing. This is the way I prepare for the season. And, so we would try to source and look into different properties where they would cook the food the way I wanted to cook. There was either on site or nearby a workout facility I could go to. And as we started doing that, my wife started to get calls from other girlfriends, wives, athletes, and asking about how we source the property. Can you set us up? And that was kind of the beginning of learning, our network and kind of what that trust factor can do. And then as my career went along, she would continue to get calls from people. And when we got to Philly and social media kind of started to take off, she had a little private account, and we would post pictures on there, and she kept getting other athletes, celebrities, and friends asking her, "Hey, how'd you find that place? Can you hook me up? Can you set me up?" And it started getting 20, 30 people, and I'm like, "Hey, there's something here." And at the same time, we got 3 young kids at home. I finally get hurt in Philly. Her mother has breast cancer, and her father has a debilitating stroke and is paralyzed on his right side. And from a timing perspective, it just wasn't right. And came back here to St. Louis. I got healthy. Her mother's now healthy. Unfortunately, her dad passed away, but about 3 years ago, our oldest started driving, and we started seeing some light at the end of that tunnel as it relates to the kids, and needing a lot of our time as it relates to driving around and getting them around to different events and things like that. So Lauren had a lot of time on her hands and really wanted to start this. It was kind of her baby, and I told her I'd help support on the business side and support in making introductions and networking and things like that. And I started having so much fun. I was just hospitality is an interesting industry in the fact that people are happy. Everybody's it's a very jovial atmosphere. Everybody wants to help one another, and I found that very intriguing coming from where I came from, where everybody's like this. And look, secretive and looking for that hidden gem, etc. So, I found it very appealing and interesting. So, I was always the guy that planned the fishing trips with all my buddies and golf trips and Super Bowl pool, Masters pool, all that stuff. So I'm an event planner at heart, anyways. So it was exciting, and I was happy for and excited at the same time. I had kicked the tires on a few other companies with a friend of mine because I wanted to run my own business and be my own boss, and it just didn't work out. And it's funny how timing works out. This presented itself, and you know what? It was exciting, and obviously a passion of mine, a passion of ours, and something that we feel was lacking in the marketplace. And so, I jumped headfirst into it, and haven't looked back since. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, obviously, but if anybody knows anything about me, hard work is not the issue.
That's right. Absolutely. You don't become one of the top 100 players in hockey history if you're averse to hard work. So it's very clear. Um, and Chris, when you speak about well-inspired travels, it's more for the executive audience rather than for family travel? Is that a fair statement?
It's actually both. It's our
Okay.
our niche clients are athletes, celebrities, CEOs, C-level executives, business owners, high net worth family offices, and the reason for that is that's what we know. From the standpoint of demands on your time, the stress of the job, the pressure on home life, the fame, fortune, all the stuff that when you look at that section, there's so many parallels amongst that group. And we do, leisure travel, we do some corporate work, we do, it kind of runs the gamut. The more interaction we can have with our clients, the better we're able to serve them. And, whether it's corporate work rolling into family, leisure travel, or vice versa, we're able to really kind of dig deep and learn more about you and understand who you are, what you want to get out of travel, your likes and dislikes as it relates to your travel. And that's very important to us because it helps us get a feel for who you are. And that allows us to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and really understand how we can better serve you, how we can better help you in your personal life and your professional life. And whether that's from on a leadership standpoint, a home front, there's so much going on in the world right now. We feel like we're in a position to help people through travel, but also in their everyday lives as we get to know them. There's a mentorship side that comes into play with us, and as we learn more about you, we can steer you in a direction based on what we know, and that's why it's important for us to really manage a lot of your travels, to really get to know and have these conversations. And maybe it's my wife having a 30-minute conversation with somebody's spouse, or myself having a conversation with an athlete, or there's all these different things that can go on behind the scenes that sometimes have nothing to do with travel, but it allows us to really get a feel for where you are in your given profession, the different stress points, the areas in travel that can really help you the most. And whether that's as simple as learning a new sleep technique for a CEO that's going to allow him to be a better leader, a new holistic healing method for an athlete that's going to allow them to recover faster and play at a higher level. We want people to be able to implement those things into their everyday life, both personally and professionally, whether it's a 2-day trip or a 2-week trip. We really try to dig deep into our clients' lives in a non-obtrusive way, and really get to know them and become friends with them.
Listening to a former player such as yourself, you had an 18-year career. You retired about 10 years ago, coming up on 10 years. It's so interesting and fascinating for those of us who are fans or admirers of professional athletes to get a peek inside, without being, as you said, intrusive, get a peek inside kind of that private life, because we just know them on the ice. We just know them on the field or the court. What are some things that athletes go through that we don't really have visibility to, that if we did understand, perhaps we'd appreciate greater what they have to go through to maintain that high level of performance?
Well, there's a number of factors. I think number one, for me personally, it was that internal struggle of pressure, stress that I would put on myself to perform, let alone the outside world and the fans and management and ownership and teammates. I had a certain level that I needed to play to and wanted to play to, that always was higher than everybody else's. I expected to be at a certain level every single day, whether it's practice or games. And I think that internal struggle, as we talk about in society now, a little bit more mental health and things like that, things that are going on at home, with your kids, with, struggles, with management, whether you're negotiating a contract, all these things have an effect, and it may be a subtle effect here and a subtle effect here, but when you're making a diamond, it's not one giant piece of pressure. It's constant pressure pushing down, creating it. And, I think having somebody who's gone through that, that understands the healing powers of travel and the mind, body, spirit, and what that can do to really help you let go. I mean, early on in my career, I was like just a ball of intensity and passion. And as I got older, I learned how to, I would be a week or 2 weeks out from a game where I made a mistake, and I would still be mad and angry about that mistake. And,
Wow.
and I just couldn't let it go. I mean, it drove me bananas. And that inner turmoil, people don't know. They think, oh, he's just going to turn a page and he's going to go to the next game. And sometimes you're able to, and sometimes you're not. And you never understand or know what somebody's thinking about, because a lot of times as an athlete, you're not going to talk about it. Like, I never talked about, in the media always ask, or fans ask, who is the toughest player to play against? I'm like, nobody. I never thought about it in that regard, because I didn't ever want something like that to enter my mind, because then I've already lost. If I think the guy's too good to play against, I can't play against him. And so I never would answer that question. I would never, because I never wanted to actually say the words because I didn't want it creeping into my mind. And there's all kinds of things like that that people don't really understand and don't get because they haven't been in those shoes and been in those situations. And I think that's where our experiences really come to the forefront because we're able to understand people on a much more personal level.
You talked about experiences just a moment ago, and you're in the travel business now. And it's my understanding, especially the rising generation, are not so much interested in things as much as they are interested in experiences. And in fact, I had a client and I was attending a conference with them. They are in the travel business. And at that conference, it was made very clear among all the speakers and such that experiential travel is the future. And this was focusing on international travelers coming to America and what we can do in America to give them more memorable experiences. But it was all about experience. It's not just about sightseeing, right? So how are you seeing the travel industry evolve since not only you were just a participant in it, but now that you're a practitioner in it, what are you seeing in experiential travel?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at our business, I mean, that's a lot of what we do is creating life experiences. Everything, our company is set up that no two people are alike, no two travelers are alike. What you like is going to be totally different from what I like. No matter how close we are in ideology and in family life, etc., we're just not because no two people are alike. So all of our itineraries are different. There's no cookie cutter approach here. And that's why the conversations are so important, is so that you can really understand what type of culture somebody's interested in learning about, destinations, culinary, adventure. All these things help create those experiences for people, so that they are getting to learn and understand and value more of what their interests are. And so as we continue to build out our company and build out our business, I think that's a hallmark of what we do. And one of our core values is understanding people, and that relationship is vitally important to what we do.
So I have to wonder, on the ice, you frankly made some enemies. They weren't your teammates, obviously. But for those listening who may not follow hockey as religiously as others, Chris Pronger was a dominant force on the ice for nearly 2 decades, and certainly that's what earned him induction into the Hall of Fame in 2015. And yet it's kind of funny to hear you talk, because I'll bet some of those players that you butted heads with or fists with are probably now really good prospects to be your clients. How do you turn that page mentally?
You know what? I think when you're playing a game like we do in a sport, it's a physical sport. I can't tell you how many times, whether I've met somebody or somebody that I've known has talked about meeting somebody that I played with or against, and they played a brash style of the game, and it's always like, man, I didn't realize that guy. He's a really nice guy. I'm like, I didn't realize it. Some people step on the ice, man, and they flip that switch, and it's war, and they're doing whatever they can to win, and people love seeing it, but they don't understand that most of the time that's not who you are off the ice. You have your own life and whatnot, but when you put your skates on and you're either filling a role, playing the villain most nights, or that's the way that you play the game. And I played the game this way since I was 7 years old. That's just the only way I know how to play.
Your older brother kind of taught you that, right?
Yes. Well, I had to keep up and play with the older kids and had to play the bigger boy hockey. And when you're getting shoved around, you got to learn how to use your stick and leverage and all that good stuff. And then when you grow bigger, all those things play to your advantage.
And now, I mean, it's so ironic, but it's so cool. Now you're in the hospitality industry, right? Come on, man. We would have thought that 10 years ago that Chris Pronger would be making sure that I'm having an enjoyable evening with my family or my company.
Yes. Yeah,
So
exactly.
awesome.
Everybody can turn the page somewhere, somehow.
Well, I don't even know yeah, you're turning the page. You're just showing, like you say, you're just showing a different side of your personality that your
Yeah.
former career didn't call for, right?
Well, and I
But
think
now,
when you asked that question earlier about what people probably didn't know, this would be the other part is as an athlete, you're on this stage, and how often do we see your real personality? I mean, you're answering questions about a game when you're in this mode. You're not asked about this, that, or the other thing. It's this right here. So this is the person people are going to see, whether it's me chirping at somebody in the media, having fun with them, or cross checking somebody in the back in front of the net, or taking a slap shot from the point. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they're going to see, but most of them are not going to see me at home with my family or see me at home in my community, just walking around, going to the coffee shop or going to the grocery store or outside of the barbecue cooking everybody dinner. They're thinking, oh, he's got a chef or he's got this, he's got that. I don't know what people think, but I don't think they realize, they put athletes up on a pedestal and they think this, but really we're all, we're good at a sport and we're good at what we do. But we're just like everybody else. We always hear the same cliches, but I chew my food just the same way you do.
well, but you're good at so many things, and I want to learn some more things from you, and I think my audience would as well. So we have many executives who are listeners and viewers of the Game Based Execs podcast. So help them and help me understand a little bit better from your experience. Let's say, even though you mentioned earlier, you could have gone back and you had a bad moment 2 weeks ago in a game that, maybe the crowd doesn't even notice it, or maybe it was the blunder that causes a loss, who knows? But either way, you have a bad experience, and many athletes say, well, it's just time to move on. Coaches say, let's just, forget about it. Tomorrow's another game. But in business, when we have a bad moment, when we have a bad meeting, when we have a client that really has surprised us with, their disdain for our services or our product, or they tell us that our people are just not performing and they don't want to do business anymore with us. From your athletic experience, Chris, what advice can you give us on the business side to be able to put those incidences aside, or at least learn from them and keep moving forward? Because there's another game tomorrow.
Well, exactly. And there's another meeting, there's another client, I think one of the things that I always try to do, obviously, you're going to fail and you can't fear failure. It's going to happen. Hockey, business, they're all, and that's why when you look at that client list, it's the same, because if you make a mistake in hockey, you better learn from it. If you make a mistake in business, you better learn from it. What mistake did you make? Reverse engineer it and look at what mistake you made, where you made it, how not to make it again, start moving forward again. It's it's wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, it is that cycle, because I always like to talk to the young players that I played with, as I gain more experience, I'd be like, stop trying to make the hard pass all the time. Stop trying to be noticed. Stop trying for everybody in the crowd and on the TV to know that you made that play. Make the simple play. Make sure that nobody knows you played this game, and you're going to be just fine. Because as you gain confidence, as you gain experience, as you gain it, you're going to then be able to use your talents and be able to gain more and more success. And then, guess what? People are going to know, wow, this guy played 10 games. He hasn't turned the puck over once. And then you're going to gain trust of the leaders, the coach, the CEO, your manager, whoever it is. And, start small, little, and then set little goals. Like, too often people are like, I want to do this. If you set goals, they got to be attainable goals. Yeah, you can have a dream and I want to do this, but how are you going to get there? And you set these little goals, and every time you can track your progress. You're gaining confidence, you're gaining motivation, you're gaining power with each one of those things, as opposed to looking up and going, I want to be there. And that's hard. That's far. How am I going to get there? So it's, there's so many things that when I look at sports, I look at business, there's so many parallels. It's crazy just how businesses operate. As you know, there's good businesses and good sports franchises, and then there's not so good. And there's always a reason. And it's funny. It's always the same reason.
Yeah. You know, I just want my audience to know Chris knows what he's talking about here. Chris played for, let's see, the Hartford Whalers, the St. Louis Blues, the Edmonton Oilers, the Anaheim Ducks, and then wrapped up your career with the Philadelphia Flyers. And I would add that with the Flyers, the Oilers, the Ducks, you those are the last three franchises you played for. Every one of them went to the Stanley Cup because of you. And in fact, the Anaheim,
Along with my teammates, but yes.
well, with teammates, but you were a leader. You were a captain on those teams. You were assistant captain, as well as the fact that the Ducks won their first Stanley Cup the year that you arrived, even though the previous year they were your arch rival when you played for the Oilers. So, so Chris knows what he's talking about taking an organization from good to great. Now, something else you said there, Chris, that I just want to touch on. It's interesting, as a professional athlete, you get to watch tape, right? As a professional executive, there's no such thing as tape. I can't really watch tape of a bad meeting.
That you
So,
know of.
good point. So I got to figure out through review, I've got to figure out what I did wrong. So I guess that suggests that I need to talk to the people around me. I need to talk to the people who I work with, my colleagues. Even though they report to me, I've got to humble myself and maybe ask them, did I do something wrong? Right? Have you found that even when you were captaining teams?
No, and I think that's the leadership side and ownership side, not owning the team, but buy-in from everybody, ownership in what you're trying to do, whether you're the CEO or you're the low-level executive or employee. It's you need people to want to come together and come every day, passionate about what they do, feel like they're a part of the team and feel like they're a part of something. But you also got to push people. You know, a lot of times in my career, it's funny when you push people, a lot of times there's pushback or there's hate or angst about, oh, why is he doing that? And then once you leave and you go to the next team and all of a sudden their play drops off, they realize, oh, he was pushing me to be better. He was pushing me to get in the gym. He was pushing me to strive for excellence. And whether that's sports or business, pushing your employees, pushing yourself. I was always harder on myself than I was anybody else. And I was always pushing myself in the gym, pushing myself in practice. I pushed everybody in practice because the games would be easier. If I was out there defending you as hard as I could, I guarantee you the games are easier. And when we were at our best, we were all practicing at that level. The game just was nothing.
Right.
But really, it's pushing people to strive for excellence, but incorporating that into the group mentality, and we're stronger together. If everybody's going in a different direction, the business or the team is going to fall apart.
I think when you say we got to push each other in practice so that the games are better and even easier, maybe in a business setting, it suggests to me that we ought to practice our meetings, right? Maybe
Absolutely.
Practice our presentations to clients, to each other, and go hard at each other so that when the client's finally sitting in our conference room, it's a piece of cake.
I think when you see mock trials, when you see defense lawyers and prosecutors do mock trials, they're doing that for a reason, because they want to see what works and what doesn't work. What verbiage should I use? How should I mean, there's all kinds of ways that people can improve on what they're doing. Whether it's me in my current business now or public speaking or what have you. There's so many different things that you're constantly looking at to improve on. and I go back again to what I learned when I was playing. I knew it was time for me to retire when I was done learning. If you're not learning, you're going backwards because everybody else is learning and getting better. And the same holds true in business. It's knowledge, it's understanding, the client, understanding the business you're in and the competitors and what they're doing, and understanding where you need to be focused. Which part of the business is slacking off, which part of the business is excelling. And, those metrics, I'm not a great analytics guy, but there's a number of things where when you're looking at it, you're like, okay, that makes sense to me. I need to pick, numbers don't lie. That's a fact. Numbers are unbeaten when studied correctly.
Yeah, great point there. You talked about knowing what your competition is doing. Just for everyone listening, Chris and I have something in common. Maybe just one thing other than being friends. And that is that every franchise he played for, Game Face actually has done some work for. And in one of those cases, when you, Chris, were at the Edmonton Oilers, I think you were only there one season. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
But in that one season, you took them to the Stanley Cup Finals. But before that, you beat the Anaheim Ducks in the conference finals, right?
Correct.
So, and that was a rough series, as I recall.
Yes.
And then Edmonton trades you in the offseason to Anaheim. So now you're going from from the Oilers to your nemesis, the Ducks. And with the Ducks, you go on the next year again to win the Stanley Cup Finals this time. I have to ask you, what's that transition like when you're walking into the locker room or the training facility with those people that were your enemies just a few months previous? How do you make that mental switch in your mind? Because I think in business, sometimes we hold grudges. And I'm wondering how.
Yeah, no, and sports is no different. But I think when the trade was made, I really didn't know a lot of players on the team either. There was a couple of guys that I was friendly with. I knew Rob Niedermeyer because of the same draft year and things like that. But I mean, really, there wasn't hardly any guys that I knew. But really went in there cold turkey. And normally somebody pretty well on a team, and that one I didn't know anybody. And I think they knew they had a good team, and I think they knew they were getting close. So when I got traded there, I think they felt like, okay, now we really got a chance. Like now we've got our team, and I think they, that's what's so great about that team. We gelled right away. We had the mindset and belief that we're going to win. Nothing else. It wasn't going to be good enough to, get to the finals. It wasn't going to be good enough to win our conference. It wasn't going to be good enough to win a playoff round. It was only going to be good enough to win the whole thing. And if we didn't win the whole thing, it was going to be all for naught. And everybody in our locker room bought in from day one, and we put the work in. We practiced hard, and we prepared hard. And our style of play was, that was probably one of the funnest teams to play on, because we could play a 2-1 tight checking game. We could play a 6-5, barn burner. We could play a finesse game. We could play a physical game and beat you up. It was like, pick your poison. What do you want, guys? Let the other team decide. But that's the fun part, is when you can play all those different styles. And we played a heavy, hard game, so it fit my skill, the way I wanted to play, and everything was kind of set up for the players that we had on the team. Everybody that we brought in had a specific role. They knew their role, and they played their role to a T, which is just like business, understanding your role, doing your job. Yes. Can you paint outside the line? Sure you can, but you need to be focused on your job, and then you can do that and focus on what you do best. It's these guardrails aren't here and you can't go over them, but you need to do this first so that everybody else can do their job, and then you can freelance a little.
Yeah. Well, see, it's just amazing to me how you can go from one mindset about a certain group of people, and then, the next day they're your teammates, and the past is the past, and we're going to win together. And I'm reminded, Chris, you remember Paul Ryan? He used to be the U.S. Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
retired
Yep.
couple of years ago from Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
And and one time he said to me, he said, "Grudges are for rookies." When it comes to politics, you go so hard against your opponents, whether it's the person you ran against or the other party that you're running against. But, once the election is over, grudges are for rookies. It's time to get to work. It's time to find common ground and success together. And
Yeah.
that's what athletes such as yourself, who've had such illustrious careers, have learned to do. And I think in business, sometimes we think, I could never work for that company, or I could never go work for that guy because I've heard his reputation. Athletes don't have that prerogative. They have to make it work. And I just find that very admirable.
Yeah, it's, I mean, every time I was traded or anytime we got somebody in, I mean, it's, you immediately have 22 new friends
Mm.
immediately because, and that's why it's harder on the families than the player because they're coming in and the kids have to make friends and then the wife has to make friends, but you're coming in and you immediately got 22 new friends, you
Mm.
know, you come in, you start practicing, playing, everybody tries to get to know you a little bit and get immersed in the team. And, you have dinners, you go out on the road, you go to a movie, you go to dinner, you could do this, you do that. And you're immersed more in a group and, then it's seamless. And I think to your point, like I played hard against Teemu Solani. My whole career, I was always matched up against him. He was always on my side and I used to always pound on him and and all that. And we always used to, battle. And then, I got there and the first day, we got into the room and I look at him, I go, "What's up, T?" We hugged it out right there in front of everybody. We're like, "All right, let's go, boys." Because there was a bigger issue to deal with, and that was to win. And, it's a game, just like it's business and then get past it and move on. And if you're holding a grudge, you're not focused right here. You're worried about this stuff that you can't control.
Mm.
I think that's one of the things that I learned as my career went along is whether it's worrying about that play or worrying about a grudge or worried about his day will come. I'll
Yeah.
I'll get him another time. We need to focus on winning. Like my some of the guys I played with would always be like, if something happened to me on the ice, it would be like a count of five. Just wait, it's coming. And 2 or 3 seconds later, I'd find that guy and boom, tomahawk him or hit him or and and as I aged and matured and gained experience and learned to manage my game better and my emotions better and not hold an immediate grudge, but we'll find a time in due course. Whether it's you got to do business with somebody at some point, you're like, well, they're going to have to come to me. Why not go to them? Why not be proactive? Why not get past these things? I mean, there's a lot of times you hear what you said, "Oh, I'd never do business with that company." Well, you never know. I learned a long time ago to never say never because honestly, there's going to be some point in time where you might have to deal with that GM, you might have to deal with that owner, you might have to deal with that CEO or that CFO or that. You just never know. And unless you're 100 years old and about to die, to say never is there's a lot going on out there in the bigger world than just this little area in front of me. So it's the
Great advice.
vast space out there is there's just too much going on in the world to say never. I get asked all the time,
Yeah.
are you never coming back to hockey? I'm like, well, I'm not going to say never, but it would have to be something pretty special because I'm loving what I do and I'm enjoying it, and it's a passion. But I'm not going to say never because I've learned my lesson. I said never one time before and it came back to bite me, and I'm never going to say it again.
Well, and you came after your playing days. You worked for the Florida Panthers for a while. That jersey is on the wall behind me here, as a senior advisor. Was that something you were anticipating, you were looking for, or were you just doing the right things and the right opportunity came along?
I was working with the league in the Department of Player Safety, and yeah, I had a passion to, I had two passions growing up. One, I wanted to run my own business, and two was I wanted to be a GM or a president of a team. And at the time, I spent a couple of years after I got hurt to get healthy, and then as I was at the tail end of my recovery, I got a phone call from Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner, asking me if I would, take on this role in the Department of Player Safety. They had lost Rob Blake, Brian Leach was done, and Brendan Shanahan was going to Toronto. So there was a lot of turnover, and they wanted somebody that had recently played and had some stature in the game, et cetera, and would be able to, talk to players and do all that. Once this started coming to fruition, you see one path, and whether it was working out or not, this opportunity was too good to pass up. To be able to, build a business from scratch, and to be working at home with my wife and now our staff. And, just like when I speak to some of the managers and staff that are with the Seattle Kraken, just being able to, and the Vegas Golden Knights, being able to build something from scratch, and being able to get in from the get-go, you're able to see where it, from ground zero up, and really you're able to learn so much more of how businesses succeed, how businesses struggle, and you're able to do a lot more research and understanding on how those pieces all interweave together. And it's been a lot of work, but as I said earlier, I like hard work. I work in my head, I work 24/7. I'm always thinking, always, when I was playing, I'd be at night, I'd be watching, TV, but I'd be watching clips, and, you see, a guy that you're going to play against, whether it's a game or two later, and you're storing in your head the move that he did on a certain play. And, you get into that position, the move he's going to make. Guys are, when a guy's going to make a play like that, and having seen it already, having the experience and understanding of playing against players, when a guy's going to make that move. And it's no different in business. And you understand the competition, you understand clients, you understand, where your business is at a certain point in time, and where you need to get to, and what you need to do to add tangible value to have people want to partake in your services.
Chris, as we begin to wrap up, again want to tap into your player experience, but also see how it's translated into your experience now as a business owner. When you were on the ice, you would feel so much energy from the crowd. I perceive that you would. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that
Whether
energy
I'm
is either
being booed or
positive.
cheered.
Yeah, right. It's either positive or negative energy,
Yes.
right? Depending on which it was, you would either ignore it perhaps, or you would feed off of it, or maybe you'd feed off both. I don't know. So I want you to share that with us, especially when we're in a climate right now because of the pandemic that we know travel has been affected, right? So you could be getting negative influences right now, and naysayers saying to you, Chris, good idea, but you and Lauren, man, you got to think of something else, because nobody wants to travel right now. You can't go anyplace easily right now. So you're getting all that negative energy. So what did you learn on the ice about that you're now translating as a business owner?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that I got booed in a lot of buildings. so so I fed off that energy, and I fed off that home crowd energy and excitement. I think for us, I don't worry about the outside world. I don't worry about what other people are saying. We track what's going on in the marketplace. We track what's going on in the hospitality industry. We track what's going on in the world globally, domestically, and really get an understanding of where things are at, especially as it relates to the pandemic. But I think as it relates to our business, we're in it for the long haul, and we're making investment in our business now, and putting resources and training our staff, and learning about what's out there, and having conversation with suppliers, and still sending people on domestic travel and some smaller international stuff, Mexico, Caribbean, things of that nature until things open up more globally. And it's actually been pretty good to really use this time to test out different functions and things that may or may not work while we're in the midst of this pandemic, to really get a feed and a read on what works, what doesn't work, what messaging works, what do people think about this product that we want to institute and put into our systems, our processes, our interactions with our clients. Our there's so many things to think about and so many things to look at as it relates to our business. It's actually given us an opportunity to move a little more slowly, to make sure that everything is in alignment and following the right guidelines, if you will, for our business, so that we're able to really, when things open back up, as you said, we're going to hit the ground running, and we'll be able to service all of our clients in the manner that they expect, and we expect to be able to serve them.
I love that. You're getting ready, right? You're getting
Yeah.
ready for that first
This is
puck to drop.
practice.
I know
It's work.
Yeah, I
work, but it's also practice.
got it. And just to be clear to everyone listening, it's not like your company is not producing results right now for clients, but obviously the pace is probably afforded you the opportunity right now to practice and to hone, so that when things open
Correct.
up, boy, you hit the ground running, like you said. So let us wrap up with 3 rapid fire questions. You athletes are accustomed to this because reporters are shooting questions at you all the time. You can give me a 1-word answer if you want. You can treat me like the Philly press corps if you want,
All
or
right.
you can say a little better, a little bit more, I should say. So at Game for Execs, Chris, as you know, we like to talk about things that persuade us, things that influence us, and things that inspire us. So in that order, I'm going to ask you, what is the biggest persuasive, or who I should say, is the one who's been most persuasive in your life to become what you are today?
Ooh. I would say my wife, just in guiding me, being a support and pushing me to be me, and not, be somebody that people think you are, or people just be yourself and be who you are. I think, as I mentioned earlier, too often people want to play into this persona, and that's when people get into trouble. They think that that's who they are because that's who people think they are. And, I think as I've aged and gained more experience, I've really kind of just, that's who I was. Too often you want to say, oh, that's LeBron James, the basketball player, or Michael Jordan, the basketball player, or Chris Pronger, the hockey player. No, I'm Chris Pronger, and I used to play hockey, but I don't play anymore. That was my former job, and now I'm in job 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, whatever it is. And, so from a persuasive standpoint, I think being comfortable in your own skin and being who you are.
Next word is influence. How does well-inspired travels influence the travel industry?
Well, I think with our business model and how we want to interact with our clients, I think it's a game changer for those that want that type of service and that type of interaction and understanding of who they are, what they want to, who they are, who they want to be, and how they want to get there. And for us, it's really just understanding the why, and that's why the questioning, that's why, the peeling back of the onion to understand who you are and what you're about, and again, where you want to get to. And often, just like my journey, it's gonna, it can be erratic. Very few people just continue on that path. Very few. There's going to be a few zigzags along the way.
And lastly, in hockey, your hockey career, as well as your business career, who in either one of those or both of those, who has inspired you? And I think, by the way, on the hockey side, one time you told me about a particular player who also ended up in the top 100 players of all time. you said may have been your greatest inspiration, but I don't want to give it away. I'll let you answer
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah, no, it's funny how things come full circle, especially in the sports industry. When I was growing up as a youngster, my favorite player was Mike Bossy. Then my favorite player was Wayne Gretzky. Just it's funny how one team won 4 cups in a row and the next one won 4 in 5 years. Then I didn't really have a favorite player, but I enjoyed watching Ray Bork. I enjoyed watching Al McGinnis. And it's funny how, as you said, everything comes full circle. I got a chance to be with them all at the top 100 induction in LA at the All-Star game in 2017, and had a great conversation with Mike Bossy and kind of told him about him. Had a 30-minute chuckle and got to know him a little bit more personally. And those are the types of conversations you love to have and talk to players about. You see, watching him go down the wing and let his slap shot go or his little quick snapshot. I mean, it was impressive. There's a reason he scored 50 goals 11 straight years.
Well, Chris, this has been a really helpful conversation. It's obviously fascinating to talk to someone of your stature and your background. We wish you the best, along with Lauren, in continuing to grow Well-Inspired Travels. And I would encourage my audience to look into it for your company, for your executive team, for your family, or just for yourself. There's so much that Chris and his staff provide. And it's really, as you said, it's a service that I think we need. And sometimes we don't even know we need it until we've experienced it.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's exactly the tagline right there. That's why you do what you do, Rob.
Oh, it's been great. So I wish you the best. Please say hello to Lauren for us and your staff.
Thank
and
you.
Keep doing things out there in the travel industry.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for being a part of this episode of Game Face Execs. If you found any of it useful or helpful, please rate or like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I always appreciate you referring us to others as well. I'll see you next week. Until then, persuade, influence, inspire.